and the brave man is called rash by the coward, and cowardly by the rash, and correspondingly in the other cases. Now, that's I just did a video called Suffering and Growth, I think it was called, where the Greeks talk about how you have to have some sort of pain and suffering to grow. That growth and knowledge doesn't come easy or free. It comes through effort and pain, suffering, hardship. The Greeks said it. Jesus said it. I think Jesus may have just been a metaphor for suffering that was lifted out of Greek plays and eventually turned into a myth about a real man. Jesus said suffering is a good thing, it brings knowledge or redemption or whatever. Nietzsche said, I wish on my friends that they would have suffering because it's the only way to grow. And here's Aristotle saying that the man, the average man, the man in the middle, the man who is virtuous, is picked on by both sides. So by being good, you don't necessarily get praised. Sometimes you get hated, not just from one area or another, but from both extremes. Just another confirmation of the idea that the difficult and the rare often coincide with what is good. You know, the good is not always easy to get. In fact, it's often difficult and rare. And part of what makes it difficult and rare to get the good is the indifference or downright resistance of other people, who might resist for a good reason, but most likely not. If you're trying to get the good and they're resisting you, then it's probably some vice in them that makes them resist you. And you're going, it's according to the Greeks and according to Aristotle here in this particular tract, and according to Jesus and Nietzsche, you're going to have to suffer. You're going to have to do something to get knowledge. You're going to have to do some effort and growth to get where you're going. You're going to be looked down on, derided, resisted. Again and again we see these messages. These states being thus opposed to one another, the greatest contrariety is that of the extremes to each other rather than to the intermediate. For these are further from each other than from the intermediate, as is obvious. Again, to the intermediate, some extremes show a certain likeness, as that of rashness to courage, right? A rash man who rushes in looks kind of like a courageous man who rushes in the circumstances where it's appropriate. And that of prodigality to liberality, right? Just spending your money like crazy looks sort of similar to a person who's liberal with their money and is willing to spread it around or something. But the extremes show the greatest unlikeness to each other. Now, contraries are defined as the things that are furthest from each other. Contraries are furthest from each other? So that things that are further apart are more contrary? So if they're closer together, they're a little contrary, but not quite so much. That's an interesting concept of contrary. Put it in your pocket, if you will. To the mean, in some cases the deficiency, in some the excess is more opposed. So in some cases it's the deficiency that's more opposed, and some the excess is more opposed. As we saw with cowardliness, it's not really opposed. It kind of looks like the average. The excess looks like the average. Being rash and rushing in looks like being courageous. For example, given it is not rashness, which is in an excess, but cowardice, which is a deficiency that is more opposed to courage and not stability. All right, and not insensibility. Okay, so he's missing rashness if he's too. He's missing cowardice if he's too rash. What are these forms? Floating forms of some kind? I love Aristotle, but you can't. Why does he say he's missing cowardice if he's rash? I mean, so that a courageous man is cowardly to some extent? Do we want to go that far? Or wouldn't we say that the courageous man is not cowardly and he'll face his death bravely or whatever? I mean, you know, the best stretches of the ethics are the ones that don't deal with the golden mean. And not insensibility, which is a deficiency, but self-indulgence, which is an excess, that is more opposed to temperance. This happens from two reasons, one being drawn from the thing itself, for because one extreme is nearer and liker to the intermediate, I thought they were equidistant. We oppose not this, but rather its contrary to the intermediate. Example given, since rashness is thought liker and nearer to courage, and cowardice is unlike it, like the opposite of it or something, we oppose rather the latter to courage. So we take cowardice and courage and we juxtapose them, and we don't think to just juxtapose cowardice and rashness, right? Cowardice and rashness don't really occur to us to juxtapose, but we do juxtapose cowardice with courage. For things that are further from the intermediate are thought more contrary to it. Again, I thought that the intermediate was equidistant, but maybe not in all cases. This then is one cause drawn from the thing itself. Another is drawn from ourselves, for the thing to which we ourselves more naturally tend seem more contrary to the intermediate. The things we naturally tend towards are the contrary of the intermediate, not a different version of the intermediate. For instance, we ourselves tend more naturally towards pleasure, and hence are more easily carried away towards self-indulgence than towards propriety. We describe as contrary to the average, then, rather, the directions in which we more often go to great lengths, and therefore self-indulgence, which is an excess, is the more contrary to temperance. Right? So if temperance is there, and then there's the guy who just eats and eats and eats, and then there's the guy on the other side who fasts and he's modest and stuff, and in the middle is temperance. So you tend to describe as contrary the directions we more often go. So contrary to being a temperate man isn't a monk, but a slob who eats too much or whatever. Okay. Now, new paragraph. The idea that, or the fact that, moral virtue is an average then, and in what sense it is so, and that it is an average between the two vices, the one involving excess, the other deficiency, and that it is such because its character is to aim at what is intermediate in the passions and in the actions, has been sufficiently stated. Hence, also, it is no easy task to be good. For in everything it is no easy task to find the middle. Example given, to find the middle of a circle is not for everyone, but him who knows. So also, anyone can get angry. That is easy. Or to give money, or spend money. But to do this to the right person, to the right extent, at the right time, to get angry, or to give money, or spend money, with the right motive and in the right way, that is not for everyone, nor is it easy. Wherefore goodness is both rare and laudable and noble. So, because these things are difficult, goodness is rare, laudable, and noble. Hence, he who aims at the intermediate must first depart from what is the more contrary to it. So if you want to go down the intermediate path, depart from the contraries of the virtues you're thinking of. Continuing, for of the extremes one is more erroneous and one less so. Right? If you're talking about courage or temperance, if you're talking about temperance, it'd be more reasonable for you to sort of be monkish than slovenly. Okay? So if you can't do the average, aim towards the opposite of the one you tend towards. Since to hit the average, the mean, is hard in the extreme, we must, as a second best, as people say, take the least of the evils. But we must consider the things towards which we ourselves also are easily carried away. For some of us tend to one thing, some to another, and this will be recognized